Hello, I'm Mark Newman, and welcome to Save and Changing Lives, brought to you by Interval House of Hamilton. With me is Interval House Executive Director Nancy Smith. Interval House of Hamilton has been providing services to women with or without children in the Hamilton community since 1986. Services for women who have experienced abuse, violence, human trafficking, or trauma. Nancy Smith has been with Interval House of Hamilton since 1997. We are creating several podcasts for the purpose to evolve listeners' understanding of the complexities of women abuse, impact on women, children, and communities. And we caution our listeners that some of the content in the podcast may include information that some may find difficult to hear. Welcome, Nancy. And Nancy, let me ask you off the top, what is violence against women?
Hi, Mark. Violence against women and gender-based violence are terms used interchangeably to refer to violent acts that are predominantly or exclusively committed against women. Gender-based violence is similar to a hate crime, as this type of violence targets a specific group with the victim's gender as a primary motive. And violence against women is any act of gender-based violence that results in or likely result in physical, sexual, mental harm or suffering to women, including threats of acts such as coercive control, arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or private life.
And what tactics do perpetrators of abuse or violence use on women to gain or maintain power and control?
Well, men are predominantly the perpetrators of abuse and violence against women and girls. And there's lots of evidence that shows it is typically male-to-female violence or male-to-male violence. And we recognize that a woman can be a perpetrator of abuse in same-sex, trans, heterosexual relationships. However, research shows that the vast majority of perpetrators of violence against women is men.
And we have heard through the media that in Canada, a woman is murdered every 2.5 days, and the murder rate of women is shortened from every 6 days. I mean, this is alarming. What can we as a society do to try and stop this?
Well, we talk about, the impact of gender-based violence and different benchmarks in a woman's life if she's living with or in a relationship where there's abuse and violence going on. And when a woman is thinking of leaving a relationship, she's at a higher risk of lethality. Or when a woman is pregnant or after she's given birth. So we know that there's different benchmarks. Women will often talk about if she believes he's capable of killing her. And she can also describe how he may do that. And in Ontario and in Canada, we actually sadly have a list of women who have been murdered at the hands of intimate partner violence or children. And we certainly know that the Indigenous women in Canada, there's a high rate of homicide.
And are there times when a woman is at a higher risk of experiencing abuse or violence?
So yeah, Mark, when she's going to leave or she's left or she's pregnant or after she's given birth, there's different, risk indicators that we do a lethality assessment with women on to assess that level of risk and look at strategies to reduce that risk.
And who predominantly perpetuates gender-based violence?
Well, it's usually a partner or ex-partner, someone the woman knows, somebody that she has been in a relationship with.
Nancy, in relationships, we all experience arguments or conflict and disagreements. What's the difference?
So woman abuse is different than marital conflict or conflict in a relationship. And the hallmark of woman abuse is coercive control. Woman abuse involves the ongoing instrumental use of coercive control tactics against her by her partner to meet his needs. And the controlling tactics used by men who perpetrate the abuse and violence are reinforced by societal or cultural stereotypes and institutions that historically have given more status and power to men. Oppression and racism continues to impact the experiences of and the service provision to individuals and their communities. So it is different. Mark, we all have disagreements in relationships.
Indeed. And we often hear men say, well, she abused me. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, according to Stats Canada, women are 6 times more likely to report being sexually assaulted, 5 times more likely to report being strangled, 5 times more likely to require medical attention as a result of an assault, 3 times more likely to be physically injured by an assault. You know, there's lots of evidence out there around the use of the perpetrator twice as likely to have threatened her with a gun or a knife and used against her. She's more fearful for her life. She's afraid for her children because of the abuse or violence, more likely to have sleeping problems, suffer depression, anxiety attacks, lots of impacts on a woman's medical health. So, Mark, there's lots of, stats out there that really have shown historical impacts of gender-based violence on women and kids.
Wow, this has been an eye-opener. We know the services of Interval House of Hamilton are essential in changing and saving the lives of women and children every day. Nancy, I thank the women who have worked at Interval House of Hamilton and who continue to work at supporting women and children's safety. For more information, see intervalhousehamilton.org. This is Save and Changing Lives, brought to you by Interval House of Hamilton. I'm Mark Newman. Thanks for listening.